I'm not joking. Like a 64-hour edge session with no break or sleep until you literally pass out from exhaustion or get submitted to urgent care.
Imagine choking your chicken to death. That's what that drug does. What's good, YouTube? Today we're gonna be looking at the craziest drugs you never heard of. I'm not gonna lie, I have heard of some, and the ones that I do know are ridiculous. So we're gonna see what this is about. Without further ado, let's get started.
The craziest drugs that you have never heard of.
What? Okay. Get it.
At this point in YouTube history, I think everybody has watched at least one video about crazy or obscure drugs.
Yep.
And while these videos are interesting, usually if you've seen one, you've seen them all. And typically the entries are rather surface level. Fortunately, this video is different. We're gonna cover drugs that are so random and so unknown by the general public that even super niche internet communities don't know about them. Oh yeah, and this list gets crazier as it goes on. Let's begin. Salvinorin B methoxymethyl ether.
What? I'm sorry. If the drug in question is a whole essay to pronounce, that's already question mark, question mark. I don't think you're supposed to be trying anything that's called pneumono ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. Like, damn, bro. If it's not simple, do not take it.
If you thought of salvia when you heard salvinorin in the jumbled mess of scientific smart people speak, then you would be correct. But this isn't just regular salvia. This video is about drugs you've never heard of. And this stuff is way crazier than regular salvia. In fact, I think a good name for this would be super salvia. But in case you're unfamiliar with
hold on there, why are you making this sound cool though?
Regular salvia, let me recap quickly. You see, with regular salvia, from every trip report that I've seen, using salvia is almost a guaranteed miserable time. And even at that, the bar is so low for salvia that even a good experience is pretty much just not being as traumatized as the majority of people that take it.
Isn't the whole point of drugs for you to feel high, for you to feel good? So you're just damaging yourself just to feel lower? Who do they prescribe this to? Like people that are like constantly happy?
But salvinorin B isn't regular salvia. This drug is salvia's crackhead cousin. Honestly, for all intents and purposes, this drug is probably one of the most cursed compounds ever made for a variety of reasons. For starters, the National Library of Medicine states that this chemical is among the most potent and selective kappa opioids known. And in this case, stronger is not always better. To this day, there has only ever been one reliable salvinorin B trip report. And that's simply because even some of the most seasoned psychonauts don't want to touch it. Likely because it's a cursed compound with a ridiculously long half-life. According to sources,
I'm not surprised that nobody heard of this because I don't even think the druggies want it. Imagine trying to forget the position you're in because you're homeless or you're in pain or you're hungry, and then you just feel worse. Nobody want that.
Salvinorin B is 5 times more potent than salvinorin A and lasts for a duration of 2 to 3 hours, which brings using this drug into the realm of sheer insanity. If you were crazy enough to want to try this drug, you would need to heavily mentally prepare yourself beforehand because
I feel like we should give this to criminals then. I don't know, do this in prison for once a week.
Breakthrough drugs like salvia and DMT are known to cause time dilation, which means that your trip could feel longer than it actually is in real life. Time dilation is one of those things that's commonly discussed online, yet nobody really knows how or why it happens. So in a post I found on the DMT forum, a user states, "I felt like I lived an entirely different life in the DMT world. It felt like 10 years or so. I even had a family." And
10 years. What type of experiences does this drug give you? I heard you were sad. How did you start a family? Like, what?
if that's not crazy enough, another user commented on this post saying, "This happened to me on salvia, and I had absolutely no awareness of this life. I lived a whole lifetime in another life, and then zap, I'm in my bedroom. It was unsettling to me." And another user discussing his trip wrote, "What feels like an eternity only lasted 15 minutes. Keep in mind, this is just regular salvia, which only lasts 5 to 20 minutes. Considering salvinorin B is 5 times more.
So to anybody that's about to like pass away, hey man, take some salvia. Oh, you got an extra life, you the avatar. Damn, what type of things be running through the brain as this is happening?
More potent and lasts about 15 times longer. It's no wonder why so few even dare to try it. So what happened to the person that did take this compound? Well, for that, we actually need to look at the research paper. Yeah, a research paper. The doctors here had the psychonaut in the study measure his dose in micrograms, which is extremely tiny. An average dose of regular salvia is measured in milligrams, which is obviously much more.
Imagine you play a prank and you put it on someone's pizza and like you just sprinkle it and call it cilantro. That gotta be the most evil prank to play, bro. How much of these are there?
Psychonaut in this study, which is basically just a fancy name for someone who likes psychedelics, said the following about his experience with salvinorin B. "My head was observed to retract, and my face was frozen in a frighteningly blank expression as if I were..."
So you become a dream face reveal.
"Stroke. My hands adopted a strange pose and waved around very slowly.
Oh, and you turned into Stephen Hawking's.
Creepily awkward and graceful. I remembered none of this." Then...
And P. Diddy? Damn, bro! can we choose one personality?
When talking about actually breaking through on the chemical, which basically means losing track of your current reality and entering hyperspace, they wrote, I wasn't actually perceiving any objects in my environment. It was my mind that I was perceiving as a manifestation of the movement of a 5-dimensional object through a 4-dimensional membrane.
How do you even describe that?
Whatever that means. Considering this was such a minuscule dose, I can't imagine the trip report someone might come back with if they took a full send
I know it's psychedelics, but can you actually pass away through that?
level dose. Luckily for you guys, there is actually one other trip report on the entire internet, although it isn't reliable as an actual research paper. This trip report is simply titled, I cannot comprehend what happened, and it's actually written by a career chemist who synthesized the compound himself, and upon taking it was transported into an entirely different life in the 1950s.
Yeah, how is this making them sad though? Because I'm thinking, like, the way y'all making it sound is like, damn, bro, if I don't like my life, I could live my life as Superman. I don't know, but it don't sound too bad.
This is his quote on the experience. I fell through my floor into an endless array of eerie sounds. I eventually reached the bottom and felt my body hit the ground. A creature walked towards me and grabbed me by the neck and said, "Try to know what you're doing," in a disturbing voice. Then he threw me up and I landed. I stood up and realized that I was in the 1950s. The trip went from impossible events to me simply existing in a different time. I walked—
All right, good thing he wasn't black though. I'm assuming he's not black, or else his trip would have been completely different.
around on this street and found a newspaper on the ground. I could read each and every article, and on the top it read August 6th, 1953. I didn't know that it wasn't real. It was all I knew. I could remember my life, but it wasn't me. It was the life of a person that I was in 1953. I could remember my childhood, school years, first job, everything. As potentially cool as it may seem to almost time travel, this one part of this one story doesn't make this compound seem any less terrifying. 4-CMA. Like many of the obscure chemicals on this list, finding information on 4-CMA is not easy. That's because 4-CMA is a research chemical. If you don't know what research chemicals are—
I'm sorry, if we're taking research chemicals as drugs, maybe you thought to yourself, it's not meant to be taken like that? I don't know. I'm sorry. I never went in science class thinking, let me get a trip off of hydrogen bombs.
They're basically synthetic chemicals that were Frankensteined in a lab as part of a research project in an attempt to either improve on an existing chemical or to create an entirely new drug. Basically, research chemicals are the result of scientists crafting random stuff like they're brewing potions in Minecraft. The thing is, most of these chemicals don't make the cut, typically because they either have terrible side effects or they aren't useful medically. Or—
okay, so they are basically Minecraft potions, but the ones that are witch related and cursed, you gotta throw them away, not consume them.
they just lost funding on the research. If the established drugs that most people know about are the tip of the iceberg, then research chemicals pretty much cover the rest of the iceberg all the way to the bottom. 4-CMA is a research chemical that was originally synthesized in the 1960s, as it was supposed to be a stimulant that behaved similarly to an amphetamine. Despite what scientists expected, however, 4-CMA had a much more antidepressant effect than stimulant effect in test subjects. But because it was mildly pleasant to use, drug dealers actually pressed this into their own pills to evade authorities. According—
Damn, bro. I didn't even think about this. Imagine all the people that are drug dealers that have enemies that want to like lace their things with it. Some of these gotta be the craziest combination. What you mean? I got a brownie and now I'm seeing Tupac?
sources, 4-CMA was first identified at the Tomorrowland Festival in 2015, where a tablet was found in the possession of a drug dealer. Then it seemed to have disappeared, while a study conducted in 2019 reported detection of 4-CMA in pills once again. Now you might be curious, why is the slightly pleasant antidepressant on this list? Well, it turns out that this drug is highly neurotoxic to its users. In studies done with rats, it was found to permanently reduce serotonin, and in further studies done on it, it was also found that, quote, administration of 4-CMA caused a prolonged reduction in the levels of serotonin.
Hell nah, bro. Like, I thought the whole point of drugs was supposed to be a stimulant. Why are all of these drugs like make you depressed? Bro, imagine if you just accidentally consume this and you're just never happy again. That just gotta be depressing. Literally.
In the brain 1 month after injecting a single dose of the drug. In other words, it physically kills your serotonin receptors permanently. Now, to make things worse, there are still vendors that are knowingly selling this toxic chemical with no regard for the general public. This is bad because these drugs can easily end up in a wide variety of recreational pressed pills that are sold on the black market. In regards to this, in the research chemicals subreddit, one user wrote, "Nice. a substance that could fry your brain like only a lifetime of MDMA use could in one sitting.
So you're telling me there's people that actually see these warnings and say, yeah, let me try that. Like, you just gotta not care for life at that point.
Which I feel is pretty accurate. And it's even been reported that abusing this chemical could leave you with, quote, an irreversible depression that would be like an MDMA come down every day for the rest of your life. Although it's been speculating that reaching this state would require multiple large doses over a long period of time, if you don't want to take the chance at permanently damaging your serotonin neurons, I would strongly recommend staying away from this drug. I almost want to call 4CMA super MDMA, but it's really not the case. It's honestly just the worst of both worlds. The upside of MDMA is completely subdued in 4CMA, and the downside of MDMA is amplified to such an extreme degree.
So there's nothing good. With the other drug, you could meet Elvis Presley while he was still alive. You could probably meet Einstein. But with this one, it's just depressing. It's just like Sasuke's backstory or something. There's no happiness.
Absolutely no value in the trade-off. Pyros. No, not the TF2 pyro. Pyros is an abbreviated word for the class of drugs known as pyrrolidinopherones. And they're pretty much crack on crack. If you remember the bath salts epidemic from about a decade ago, well, pyros are to blame. They're pretty well known in the fringe drug community as being the most addictive class of chemicals on Earth. And when I say most addictive, I'm talking about 20 times more addictive than crack.
Oh no, do not show this to Southside Chicago. Do not show this to Philadelphia. Do not show this to Detroit, Michigan. Because I promise, we already have zombies, but now they might start doing backflips. They might start flying, levitating. I don't know. Don't do this.
These drugs are absolutely insane, and they don't even hold a candle to the mainstream drugs known for their addictiveness. For example, with commonly known drugs, most people actively decide to stop using it before their supply runs out. This is definitely not the case with this stuff. Barely anyone in recorded history has started using a supply of pyros and just stopped halfway through out of sheer willpower. In most stories on the internet, people who start a stash of pyros only end their days-long bender because they became full-blown psychotic and ended up in a psych ward, or if they're lucky, started seeing shadow people early on and got scared enough to flush the rest of their supply down the toilet. But this stuff is so addictive that I'm convinced somebody has flushed their stash down the toilet and then immediately gone sewer diving afterwards on a quest to find his precious ball in the mortar.
No, I'm sorry. If you're that addicted, bro, it's GG's, bro. Imagine someone try to like take this away from you and you start just nibbling at their hand like I'm sorry. If my homie got addicted to this, I just gotta leave you, bro. I'm sorry, because I'd be damned if I woke up in the middle of the night with a gun to my head talking about, yo, bro, where'd you put it? Where'd you put it?
Lord of the Rings. Because of this, even the most seasoned drug users won't take this stuff because the compulsion to take more is practically impossible to overcome. In hindsight, it's no wonder we had a bath salts zombie epidemic. Just to clarify, bath salts are literally just pyros. Imagine you're trying to quit a chemical that's 50 times more addictive than crack, and every
bath salts? Yo, who made the name bath salts? Like, are we supposed to like use those in the bathroom or something? Call me dumb, I don't know. Like, that sounds like something you use in the bathtub.
time you make a stop at the gas station for your nightly Twinkies, a scraggly old dude in the back who smells like salami is tempting you to buy it for a couple bucks. The thing about the bath salts epidemic was that whenever authorities finally got around to outlawing the latest chemical, the drug lords that sold them would just hire some armchair chemist on the internet to look for slightly different chemicals on the dark web that kinda looked the same. Keep in mind, they wouldn't even know what the side effects would be. So basically,
I wonder if drug dealers like ever like feel guilty of the fact that, bruh, y'all ruined whole generations of families by selling these for what? Like, is it worth it?
basically, they were pretty much just selling random research chemicals to homeless people as test subjects. Because of this, a lot of people got caught up in bath salts addiction around 2012 because they had no idea how addictive they would be. But that's not even it. The most diabolical aspect of pyros is that they make you extremely horny.
You know what? If I'm turning 50 and my little man not working anymore, my little Johnson not working anymore, I think I know what I'm gonna use next.
I'm not joking. Like a 64-hour edge session with no break or sleep until you literally pass out from exhaustion or get submitted to urgent care. They say that meth...
Imagine choking your chicken to death. That's what that drug does. At that point, bro, it's GG's. You probably gonna complete adult videos, bro. You gonna finish the whole website videos and you still gonna want to keep going.
can turn you into a gooning degenerate. But this stuff is like meth times 5. To make matters even worse, somewhere along the way, armchair chemists on the internet somehow figured to conveniently turn this compound into vape juice, which pretty much makes this invention the world's worst jewel. So the next time your mom gets mad at you for your vaping addiction, feel
Yeah, she's helping you, bro. Oh my goodness, if they add this with vape, bro, society's done.
free to remind her that there's some 45-year-old dude with scraggly hair in his basement vaping super crack and jorking it for 10 days straight. The amount of gooning behavior pyros cause would literally make your average Discord moderator look like a Buddhist monk. Long story short, outside of their extremely addictive addictive qualities, these drugs are well known for turning you into a D1 gooner. Like, legitimately, the Michael Jordan of gooning. From what I've read, this drug easily makes you the biggest degenerate in the world. Trust me when I say, pyros are one diabolical class of drugs.
I feel like this video low-key inspired other people to try some of these because I thought drugs were supposed to make you feel like just calm down, chill. We got gooning pills?
5-MeO-DMT. 5-MeO-DMT is basically DMT's mysterious grandfather. If you think the sorcerers we talked about in the medieval video were mysterious, you'll be even more intrigued by this chemical compound. This chemical is sometimes nicknamed the God molecule, and surprisingly, unlike other chemicals on this list, this substance is actually naturally occurring. But this isn't found in a mushroom or tree bark like normal drugs. 5-MeO-DMT is naturally occurring in toad venom, of all things. I mean, talk about...
Y'all are throwing down toads to get your drugs, bro. I'm sorry, if you're sticking your fingers in some toads just to be high, you're too deep in, bro.
Hardcore. Unlike the more forgiving and consistently spiritual trip brought on by regular DMT, whether or not 5-MeO-DMT is going to be a glowing spiritual experience or an existential crisis was basically a coin flip. And that's a problem, because if you choose to inhale this stuff, it is reported that this trip could last up to 2 hours, which is 8 times longer than regular DMT's duration of roughly 15 minutes. And unlike most psychedelics, in which people usually report pleasant experiences when they use the drug with reverence and respect, 5-MeO-DMT doesn't care how nicely you treat it. And that sucks, because if you have a bad time, you could have a very bad time for up to 2 hours. Additionally, in my armchair psychologist opinion, I'd wager that a bad trip on 5-MeO-DMT is at least 10 times worse than a bad trip on regular DMT. To prove this point, I'm calling upon a popular website known to host trip reports. On this website, there's a category for bad trips. For context, with regular DMT, some titles of bad trip reports include,
I don't understand that people could have bad trips using drugs and continue using it. Bro, it's clearly not compatible with you. Just stop using it. Matter of fact, just stop using it even if you feel good. It's still terrible.
first breakthrough, ego loss and bad trip, accelerating the evil and ego death, a cautionary tale, unprepared liftoff into the worst case scenario, and too much for a first time.
Wait, hold on. You fly to Mars? Wait, is DMT that bad?
Which, to be honest, pretty much sounds like they either took too much or experienced ego death, which is kind of a normie experience with psychedelics. Now, on the other hand, here are the titles for bad trip reports on 5-MeO-DMT. Existential horror, pure horror, facing psychedelic terror, unimaginable depths of terror, and
No, y'all got it. I hate horror movies. Horror movies is not my thing. I prefer to have a good life. I like romance movies. Give me some women. I'm sorry. If a drug is making me go crazy and I'm seeing monsters, no, I won't even touch that.
I ended up praying to Jesus Christ.
Okay, you
it's
can
not
be
a super
religious.
fun way to spend your Sunday afternoon. Honestly, as a word of caution, if you're prone to existential anxiety, I would shy away from reading any bad trip reports altogether. Now, it seems like a common theme in these reports that people actually think that they're about to die or actually dying while on the drug. Now, I don't know about you, but taking a drug that makes me believe I'm actually dead and now my only friends are Casper the Ghost, the Grim Reaper, and Harambe totally sounds like a blast. Not. One reason for these reoccurring death themes in
you gonna be meeting King Von, Juice WRLD, and Tupac all in one go. Like, that's insane, bro.
trips might be that 5-MeO-DMT is one of the only psychedelics that has the actual capability to kill you. You see, usually psychedelics can't kill you unless you do something really dumb under the influence. 5-MeO-DMT is different though, because unlike most psychedelics, this drug has caused death in at least 2 cases, with the 3 major causes being, quote, suffocation after vomiting, lung shutting down, and cardiac arrest. One interesting trip report I found about 5-MeO-DMT wrote, I cannot emphasize enough how insanely weird, alien, and utterly cosmic this felt. Like I'd broken some type of rule and I'd entered an entirely different universe of some type. If you ask me, 5-MeO-DMT is nothing to mess with. First half, Duster. I know what you might be thinking. What on earth do you mean by Duster? The nickname your elementary school bully gave you in 4th grade?
Duster? Who is trying drugs called Duster? I'm sorry. I feel like you gotta hate life to be like, let me try some Dusters.
A brush for dusting furniture? An American indie rock band from San Jose, California that was formed in 1996? Okay, nobody was thinking that one. No, I mean Air Duster. Air Duster is the one drug that I can't state this clearly enough, you never want to use. And the reason is way more insidious than you may think. Duster kills your brain cells.
Might as well just try posing while you're at it, because what are you doing at this point?
By the way, Air Duster is not just compressed air in a can. The reason Air Duster is actually considered a drug is because it's mostly a refrigerant, not air.
Oh, so it's like Whippets, but times 2.
Air. And because this gas is heavier than air, when most people are using it, their voice becomes very deep
and my voice gets really low.
And sounds like a monster. Basically, when you
Okay,
inhale, the
wait a
chemical
minute.
replaces all of the oxygen in your lungs and
Helium.
removes carbon dioxide in the same way that regular air does. All the while, your body is getting tricked into thinking that it's inhaling oxygen because there's no carbon dioxide building up. This causes the user to get hypoxic, which is basically another word for painless brain suffocation. Essentially, Duster makes you suffocate without your brain sending you into fight or flight mode, which
So everybody trying that galaxy gas in about 20 years, you're not gonna even be able to talk anymore. Your brain cannot even function. You're done.
often causes euphoria as a byproduct. This might sound cool or fun until you realize that every time you get high, you're giving yourself insane amounts of brain damage. This is because your brain can only bear around 2 to 5 minutes of hypoxia before your brain cells die permanently. To make things even worse,
Damn,
usually
permanently?
Duster abusers will use this stuff for hours on end or until they pass
Why?
out. So instead of just minutes of killing their brains,
I've never saw a can of air duster and I was like, let me put this in my mouth. Like, what is wrong with y'all? Did y'all just wake up one day and were like, okay, my table is clean. Next up, we need the mouth. Like, hello?
cells, they're doing it for hours a day. According to numerous anecdotal sources I've seen across online, this is one of the hardest drugs in the world to quit. I know this sounds ridiculous, but this is a reoccurring theme on this list. For example, in a post titled "My Story of Air Duster Addiction," one user on Reddit wrote about how addictive this stuff can really be. In this post, he writes about the first time he tried it. Quote, "One blast and I was done for. I felt like I needed to feel this way for the rest of my life. I cannot describe the euphoria." Then, according to his story, he went to rehab, but immediately after he got out, he relapsed, writing, "I got a job that I lost, but I received a paycheck for around $200 and literally
Only?
went on a ridiculous binge on Duster in my car in the Walmart parking lot. I easily huffed over 50 cans in a
What? At that point, are you even feeling anything? No, at that point, bro, you're cooked.
48-hour period. I seriously couldn't stop." He ends the story with saying,
I guess you could say his brain was pretty clean. My bad. That was bad.
quote, "This stuff will make a mess of you and will take you down faster than any hard drugs out there. This is not some kiddie drug. Like I've said, I've tried everything, and nothing has compared to the insane rush of euphoria you get from Duster. If you use Duster, even short lengths of
Damn.
abuse can cause permanent brain damage, serious memory problems, seizures, loss of IQ, a loss of
Hell
one's
nah.
ability to
I already feel dumb as hell sometimes, bro. If I lose any more IQ, it might be GG's for me.
focus, confusion, a permanent loss of coordination, permanent slurred speech, and death. With that being said, the biggest reason to not use Duster is the fact that Walmart, of all things, would become your new drug dealer, which might be one
Yeah,
of the
it's so
lamest ways to die
accessible.
of all time. On a big forum called "Do You Know Anyone Who Permanently Fried Their Brain from Drugs?" To nobody's surprise, Duster and inhalants in general was the most commonly mentioned drug in the replies.
Galaxy
And that's
gas.
because most drugs don't kill your brain matter. Many of them will change your brain's chemistry, but in most cases, your brain can make a full
be
recovery
good.
over a long enough period of time. But this is not the case with Duster. In response to this question, one person in this thread wrote, "I worked at a movie theater, had a coworker who was above average intelligence. He got into inhaling air cans. After
Damn.
3 months, he was pretty much the dumbest person I ever knew. He didn't make much
Damn.
sense and he thought everything was so funny." Another user wrote about their Duster experience, and I think it's safe to say that this stuff is definitely no joke. According to the poster, they, quote, "probably inhaled dust off 3 to 10 times a day for 2 years." Then
What?
they talk about when they finally quit it. Quote, "By the time I stopped, I could not understand language much. I couldn't understand the concept of family or why anything worked how it was supposed to work. Sometimes I read and words suddenly looked like foreign shapes to me and I can't decode them in my head. I'm lucky I'm not like that to this day." Yeah. Definitely don't take this drug if
Damn.
you value your life. All
Yes, just use it to clean your house and leave it at that.
in all, I'd wager even the most hardcore drug nerds out there haven't heard of at least one of the chemicals I mentioned on this list. But if
But anyways, YouTube, that is the craziest drugs you never heard of. Moral of the story, don't try drugs. I don't think that's something I should be saying. But to anyone that has ever thought about it, dude, don't get fried. Be smart, just love life. Make sure you guys subscribe, bro, to 700K, man. Join us on Discord, catch us on Twitch, all that good stuff, man. Wax for life. Love y'all.
TJ